So I have 8 questions here. You pick 3 numbers, and whatever questions they correspond to, that is where we start.
All right. 3.
What is something you did for a role in the past that now makes you say, I'm really glad I tried that at a point, but I don't ever have to do that again?
When we were filming X, just after we, shot the porno and we were kind of all like just chilling out, having some beers, playing guitar, we had some bologna sandwiches that were part of the scene, and I decided to eat one of those, and I didn't really think through the fact that I was going to have to then eat bologna sandwiches for the rest of that scene, and because there were so many people involved, there was a ton of coverage taking place, and it just ended up being a massive scene, and I felt like bologna at the end of it, and I'm just glad that I never again have to eat a bologna sandwich.
What is your second number?
8.
There is a zombie outbreak on the sets of X and Pearl. I need to give you more people to play with here. There's a zombie outbreak. You can pick 2 co-stars to team up with to give yourself the best chance of surviving. Who do you pick and why?
Brittany Snow. She has a way of kind of flipping any situation on its head and just making everything feel okay, and I think you would need that in that sort of situation. And Scott Mescudi, because who wouldn't want Kid Cudi there with you whilst dealing with that sort of situation?
We've got one more pick. What is your last number?
1.
Number 1 is high-low. Can you give us 1 audition high and 1 audition low and tell us what you learned from that low?
Oh gosh, 1 audition high, probably at the top of my mind when I auditioned for a movie called Marrowbone a few years back with my director, and I met Sergio there, and it went so well that he ended up giving me the job on the spot. So that was pretty great. An audition low, I mean, there are lots of those. Probably, just auditioning and just for bizarre things like a Catwoman, like where you're not that, but like when you're auditioning for she was a model during the day and then she became a leopard at night, and just like getting into the things like that, and it was just quite bizarre.
I mean, honestly, I kind of want to see that now.
They never made that movie.
But I want to watch it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night that is not only happening in person, face-to-face with Mia Goth, but we're also doing a film festival, Collider Ladies Night, right now, which is a first, and it's very exciting. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished, but in particular right now, we're celebrating Pearl, and you are something else in this movie.
Thank you.
I know that modeling came first, and I was reading that you were first discovered at 14, but you started auditioning at 16. So I was wondering, was there ever a point when you thought modeling would be the primary career, or did you always know you were going to go the acting route eventually?
No, the modeling was great at the time. It was great to have a little bit of pocket money. It was great to, get it a little bit more comfortable in front of a camera and understanding what how to work with a group of people in that capacity. But acting was always something that there was never any question which route I wanted to go. But honestly, I didn't really do a ton of modeling. I tried, but it never was I was never very successful at it. It was only really after I started working in movies did I, kind of start to work with more esteemed photographers and brands. That came later.
Your very first feature, we have to talk about Nymphomaniac. Looking back at that production, is there anything that now makes you say, I'm so glad that set, those people, that material was my very first experience making a feature film?
Yeah, entirely. Absolute everything about that film. It feels divine almost, if I can say that. It just entirely, it created a blueprint for me in terms of the kind of material that I wanted to work on, with the types of directors and with that kind of caliber of cast. I was incredibly fortunate to have that as my first project. It really kind of set the field for me in terms of what it is I'm aspiring to do.
What did that tell you about the types of set environments and the stories you want to tackle at the time? What did that movie make the priority for you when you were picking projects after that?
Stories that are exploring people That's pretty much it. And not so much plot. Plot doesn't interest me all that much. Character studies, directors that are interested in actors and bringing out the best in them, and directors that are concerned with the truth and don't want to and that being at the forefront of what they do. I'm very director oriented. That's the number one for me, and then it goes in to character, and then to script and to story and everything else around that. But for me, if you don't trust the director who's leading the ship, then nothing of any value, I think, is going to be made.
You've worked with some of the best directors out there. Can you give me an example of 2 directors you've worked with that have like the most polar opposite ways of working with actors, where they've given you like the widest possible range of experiences?
I actually think the best directors are all quite similar in their approach. I think the best directors aren't afraid to give up control. The best directors don't try to micromanage or control their actors or anyone on set. In some ways, the director's job is everything leading up to set. The director is the one bringing everyone together and picking costume designers and makeup artists and production designers and so on, and then trusting them to do their job. And if the director has faith in these people, I think that's where real magic can happen.
Okay, so to kind of flip that around a little, when you wind up on a set where a director is micromanaging or not necessarily working in a way that's conducive to your own process, what can you do to still deliver your best possible work, but also, keep a positive atmosphere on set? Because I think it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, that's a good question. What can you do in a situation where the director is micromanaging you, and what can you do to keep the set still a positive place?
I feel like I just asked you an impossible question.
No, I think, sometimes sets aren't necessarily quote unquote just positive. Sometimes sets have to that there is a little bit of friction sometimes on set, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think good ideas can come from that. Sometimes when you clash with somebody, when maybe with a director's idea or approach, yes, you can try it, and sometimes the director might be right, but other times it's good to voice your opinion and what you think the character would do in that instance, and not just do what the director wants. It's by the time you get to set, you should have full ownership of your character.
When you're first starting out especially, I know it can be hard sometimes to have the courage to speak up. So do you remember the very first time that happened and you not only spoke up, but recognized that your voice was being heard in a positive way?
Yeah, that's definitely not something that happens day one of being on a set. That comes with time. And I didn't do that at all on Nymphomaniac. I was just very grateful to be there, and I didn't have anything to say to Lars von Trier. That wasn't lost on me. But maybe with my next film on the Survivalist, that was probably the first time that I started to voice my own opinions, or at times concerns about a certain situation or approach to a scene. And Stephen Fingleton, the director of The Survivalist, who is incredible, and I don't think he gets enough recognition for what he does. But there were moments where we really clashed, and they got quite tense sometimes. But at the end of the day, if the work benefits from it, then it's only a good thing, and we move on from that experience, and it's nothing but immense love for one another.
One thing that still to this day absolutely shocks me is that X was your first lead role in a feature. My brain cannot compute that given what I had seen you do before, and it was making me curious. Is that something that you were thinking at the time? Was it like it's about time that I finally got a lead role?
I mean, it was... Yeah, I think, yeah.
You deserve to think that at that point.
Yeah, thank you. It was just nice to finally have the opportunity to really to dive into a character to that depth, you know, and the fact that Ty believed in me so much and wanted me to take on these dual roles, and then with Pearl being an extension of that, it was very exciting.
So let's get into Pearl full force now. The first thing I'm really curious about is, at what point did you first hear from Ty that he even had like the slightest idea to make another Pearl movie?
I was in New York and I was prepping X, and it was probably 6 weeks into my prep. It was around the middle of October, and he sent me a text message and he said he had an idea for a prequel, and we FaceTimed that evening, and he shared with me what he was thinking and that he wanted me to help him write the script, and it was incredibly exciting to me. And you know, it was always a big maybe. There was always a strong chance that A24 weren't going to agree to it, but we thought to ourselves that at the very least it would serve as an amazing backstory to older Pearl.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the idea Ty had when he first messaged you and what we see in the final film?
Originally, we wanted it to be a black and white film, and we were just thinking from a purely practical point of view. You know, a black and white film was cheaper. We were just trying to incentivize A24 as much as possible to just let us make it. But they weren't so keen on that. They had quite a few other black and white films out at the time. And so we thought, okay, well, let's just go to the complete opposite end and make it completely Technicolor, kind of this demented Disney sort of movie. And it actually all worked out for the best, because I don't think the film would be anywhere near as good as it is had it been in black and white.
How long did you have to shoot Pearl?
We shot Pearl in 4 weeks. Yeah,
God.
It was 6-day weeks.
I imagine everything
6-day weeks.
I imagine everything has to be planned out to a T to get everything you need, but I guess maybe I should warn people so you could speak about this freely. We are going to put a spoiler warning up so you could reference whatever scene you want at this point. But which scene would you say changed the most from script to set, where you were only able to find that special spark in the moment when you were working with your scene partners?
Probably the monologue, I would say, and that the entire scene that bookends that with us walking in and getting the lemonade to right at the very end where I'm chasing after Mitzi. That whole sequence. Yeah, I mean, you can rehearse and you can go over your lines as much as you want, but until you're there on the day, you can't ever really know how that's going to turn out.
How many times did you do that?
Not many. Maybe like 5-6 times.
It's a big monologue. It still sounds like a lot to me. Was that the scene that you kind of like circle in red on the shooting schedule and say that's the most intimidating one?
Yeah, absolutely. And Ty scheduled that for the last day of our shoot, which was great, actually, because all of that, the intensity that came from shooting and the exhaustion that we felt really influenced the delivery of that monologue on the day.
I love hearing about like the random, unexpected magic that happens in the moment. So was there ever a day on set when things weren't going to plan, but you guys figured out a creative way to pivot and a scene turned out better off for it?
Probably the very last scene that we shot, where, you know, it's Ty always had this idea of it being a freeze frame on my face, and it was just a very difficult day in general, and we were running out of time, and we ended up shooting that, that was just one take, and we only had one chance to do it, and that was never the plan for it to go on for as long as it did, but Ty decided to keep rolling, and then I just decided to go along with it, and then that came about.
I don't know if this is me overthinking it, but like what is going through your mind playing Pearl when you're staring dead into a camera? Because that's not just like a quick shot of you. That is something that, you know, the emotion evolves and it pours out. So what do you have to be thinking in that moment?
It's not so much thinking in that situation. I think if you can get into trouble as an actor if you start thinking like that when you're on set. it's just a feeling, and you kind of you kind of black out a little bit. You don't really know what's going on. You kind of just hope. You kind of just lose yourself in it, and then you go for it. Sometimes the director will ask, "Oh, can you do that again?" But you don't really know what you did, so it was a similar thing in that.
Where do you think she draws the line between right and wrong? Does she have any moral compass or understanding of when she has crossed a line?
Yeah, I think so, very much so. I think she's fully aware when she commits these acts and that they're wrong. But she's a very emotional person, and you know, she lets her emotions get the better of her. But she definitely has a moral compass, and she knows when she's wrong, and she has to live with that guilt, and it's not easy for her.
Congratulations on Pearl and everything you have accomplished. I meant everything that I said. I love your filmography so much.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much.